You're not buying her like cattle. Logan Harrison's voice tore through the crowd like thunder. His hand slammed 3 months' wages onto the auctioneer's table, coins scattering across wood worn smooth by cruelty. Hannah Williams stood frozen on the auction block, her 55-year-old frame trembling not from fear, but from disbelief. No one had defended her in decades. The whispers had started before dawn in Riverside, California, 1885. They said Hannah Williams was too old to be worth keeping, too weathered to deserve kindness, too used up to ever belong anywhere again. Her nephew Jacob had brought her here after his wife demanded it. One less mouth to feed during the drought, one less burden. The sun beat down merciless and white. Hannah's bare feet burned against scorched wood, but she refused to flinch. She had survived 55 years of being invisible. She would survive this, too. The auctioneer called her name with disgust. Hannah Williams, 55 years old, can still work strong enough for laundry and cooking. Laughter rippled through the crowd like poison. Who'd waste food on something that old? A woman jeered. Then Logan stepped forward, his storm-grey eyes locked on Hannah, as if she were the only person breathing. He was young, maybe 30, with trail-worn clothes and dust-covered boots, but his voice carried the weight of a man who had lost everything and refused to lose again. And in that moment, Hannah wondered if mercy still existed in this brutal world. If this story moves you, if you believe some truths need to be told, don't let it disappear. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Logan turned to the auctioneer, his jaw tight with controlled fury. What did her family get for putting her up here? Silence swallowed the square. Even cruelty had its limits of shame. Hannah's voice cut through clear and steady. 1 bag of flour, so they wouldn't starve this winter. Logan's face darkened. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch, heavy with coin. That's 3 months' wages, he said, his voice low and dangerous. More than enough to cover whatever debt you think she owes. The crowd gasped. Money like that could feed a family for half a year. He turned back to Hannah, and for the first time in decades, she saw herself reflected in someone's eyes, not as a burden, but as a human being. I'm Logan Harrison, he said. I've got a ranch 15 miles south. I need help. I pay fair, but I'm not buying you like livestock. If you come with me, it's because you choose to, and if you ever want to leave, I'll take you anywhere and give you enough to start fresh. Hannah stared, her throat tight. Why me? Logan's voice softened. Because everyone else sees you as too old, but I see a survivor, and I need someone strong enough to help me keep my ranch from dying. The words struck her like lightning. What about the contract? She whispered. The years of service. There are no contracts, Logan said firmly. You work for me, I pay you wages. Simple as that. He extended his hand, steady and sure. Hannah looked at it for a long moment. Then she placed her weathered hand in his. The Harrison Ranch stretched across golden valleys that seemed to breathe under the California sun. Hannah stood in the doorway of the small guest room, her chest tight with emotion. A real bed, a door with a lock on the inside, privacy, dignity. She had not known dignity in years. That first morning, Logan made coffee and set out bread and preserves. Figured we'd need something filling, he said. Long day ahead. No commands, no cruelty, just respect. They worked side by side, checking fences and assessing the barn. Hannah moved with the efficiency of someone who had spent a lifetime working without complaint. When they reached a collapsed section of fence, Logan began unloading the tools. These posts weigh about 50 pounds each, he warned. Don't strain yourself. Hannah lifted 2 posts, 1 on each shoulder, and carried them to the work site without breaking stride. Logan stared. "You're going to hurt yourself." She shook her head. "I've carried heavier." His expression shifted, anger flickering not at her, but at the life that had demanded strength through suffering. "Then your nephew worked you into the ground." "Yes," Hannah said simply. "But at least now I know what I'm capable of." They worked until the sun dipped low, sweat soaking their clothes, muscles aching, but hearts lighter. By evening, Logan said something that made her breath catch. "If anything in the house doesn't work for you, we'll fix it. You tell me, and we'll make it right." No one had ever cared whether she fit into a space. But Logan did. Weeks passed like water smoothing stone. Hannah felt herself softening, laughter returning to her life in quiet, unexpected moments. The ranch came alive under their shared labor. Fences stood tall. The barn held strong. Hope replaced despair. One afternoon, they rested beneath an oak tree near the creek. Logan handed her a canteen, his expression thoughtful. "You're stronger than any person I've ever worked with," he said, "and I'm grateful for it. This ranch was dying. With you here, we have a real chance." Hannah held her breath, waiting for the cruelty that always followed praise, but Logan only continued. "If you're willing, I'd like to offer you more than wages. Stay 2 years, work like you have been, and I'll give you a share of the profits when we sell the stock. A real stake in the ranch." Hannah's hands trembled. "No one's ever offered me a share of anything." "You've earned it," Logan said simply. That evening, over dinner, he asked about her life before the auction. She told him about her late husband, about raising her nephew after his parents died, about the years of being invisible. "You deserved better," Logan said quietly. "You still do." Hannah looked at him across the table, this young man who saw her not as old but as valuable. "Why are you so kind to me?" Logan's eyes grew distant. "I lost my wife and son 3 years ago. Fever took them both in 1 week. I know what it's like to be alone. I won't let anyone else feel that way if I can help it." Hannah reached across the table and squeezed his hand. They were both survivors, and they were building something beautiful. The riders came at dawn, 5 men on horseback, dust rising like a warning. Hannah was in the garden when she heard them. She straightened, her hands tightening on the hoe. Logan stepped out of the house, his expression hard. The lead rider dismounted. He had cold eyes and a cruel smile. "Name's Garrett. Mr. Thornton sent us." Logan's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" Garrett gestured casually around the property. "Mr. Thornton has an offer. Sell the ranch, or he'll take it another way. Fires start easy in dry seasons. Accidents happen. That barn of yours looks like it'd go up real quick." It was not a threat. It was a promise of violence. Before Logan could respond, Hannah stepped forward, her voice steady. "There's a problem with your plan. Threatening arson gets a man hanged in California. 5 witnesses would be 4 too many for Mr. Thornton." Garrett's eyes narrowed. "You think an old woman can stop 5 armed men?" "I think you were sent to scare us, not kill us," Hannah replied calmly. "Violence leaves evidence. Thornton is too smart to leave evidence." Garrett stared at her for a long moment, reading her certainty. Then he spat on the ground. "This isn't over." The riders thundered away. Logan let out a shaking breath. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen." "They didn't hurt us," Hannah said, though her hands trembled. "That's what matters." They rode into town and filed a complaint with the sheriff. Now any move Thornton made would be public. If you believe courage can bloom at any age, if you've ever felt overlooked but refused to disappear, let this story be proof you still matter. Share it and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. For weeks, no attack came, but the tension never left. They worked harder, faster, rebuilding what time and neglect had broken. One evening, Hannah climbed into the barn loft to check the hay stores. The plank beneath her boots cracked. She dropped through the floor, her body swinging into open air. Her hands caught a support beam at the last second, splinters digging into her palms. "Hannah!" Logan's scream tore across the barn. He scrambled up the ladder, his face white with terror. He stretched out flat on the loft floor, reaching for her wrists. "I've got you," he said, gripping her with both hands. Her arms burned as they hauled her back onto solid wood. She collapsed against the planks, gasping for breath. Logan pulled her into a desperate embrace, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. "God," he whispered into her hair. "I thought I lost you. I can't lose you, Hannah. I can't." When he pulled back, his hands were shaking, his eyes were raw. "I need you to know," he said slowly. "You matter to me more than I can explain. I can't go back to being alone. I wouldn't survive it again." Hannah's throat tightened. "You don't have to say anything," he added quickly. "I know life's been hard. I just needed you to know." But Hannah did not pull away. "You matter to me too, Logan. More than I thought possible." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to turn away. She didn't. Their lips met in a gentle, trembling kiss that grew into something real and fierce. That night, sitting by the fire, Logan said the words without warning. "Marry me." Hannah's breath caught. Logan rushed on. "I know it's fast, but Hannah, I love you. I love your strength, your courage, your loyalty. I loved my wife and son, and I'll always carry them in my heart. But I love you too. And I don't want to spend another day not being married to you." Tears filled Hannah's eyes. "I never thought anyone would want me," she whispered. "Not at my age. Not after everything." "You're not too old," Logan said fiercely. "You're exactly who I need. Exactly who I want." "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with joy. "Yes, Logan. I'll marry you." Winter hit the ranch hard that year, but they faced it together. One blizzard brought a young woman half frozen to their door. Her name was Sarah, and she was running from Thornton. He had tried to force her into servitude by threatening her family. This time, Logan didn't just go to the sheriff. He brought back a newspaper reporter. Sarah told her story. The sheriff filed charges, and when they rode to Thornton's ranch with a warrant, his empire began to crumble. Thornton screamed at Hannah as they hauled him away. "This is your fault! You'll lose everything!" But Logan sat beside her, taking her weathered hand in his. "No," he said quietly. "We'll be just fine, because we have each other." 2 days later, the sheriff married them in his office. "I do," Logan said firmly. "I do," Hannah said, the words ringing like freedom. Spring painted the ranch in green and gold. Life returned to the land. Joy returned to their home. Sarah stayed with them, becoming the daughter Hannah never had. One evening, as the sky burned orange, Hannah took Logan's hand and led him to the porch. She had been nervous all day, her stomach fluttering with a secret she could barely believe. "Logan," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." He turned to her, concern flickering in his eyes. "What is it?" She took a breath. "The doctor came by yesterday while you were in town." Logan stiffened. "Are you ill?" "No," Hannah said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Logan, I'm going to have a baby." He froze. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, his expression shifting from shock to wonder to overwhelming joy. "A baby," he whispered. His hand moved to her stomach with reverence. "We're having a baby." Tears streamed down his face. The life he lost, the life Hannah never thought she'd have. A new beginning neither of them expected. "I didn't think it was possible," Hannah said, her own tears falling. "Not at my age." "You've always been full of surprises," Logan said, pulling her close. "Always." That night, they sat together under the stars, his hand resting on her belly, both of them marveling at the miracle growing inside her. At 55 years old, Hannah Williams was becoming a mother for the first time, and she had never felt more alive. Months later, at the Harvest Festival, the whole town gathered to celebrate the end of a hard season. Hannah stood beside Logan, her belly round with life, her face glowing with contentment. Logan surprised her with a silver bracelet he had made himself. Carved into it were 3 images: a mountain, a barn, and a strong woman standing tall. "You were never too old," he said as he slid it onto her wrist. "You were always just right." He turned to the crowd, his voice carrying across the square. "This is my wife, Hannah Harrison. She saved my ranch. She saved my life. And now she's giving me a future I never thought I'd have again." The crowd cheered. Even those who had mocked her at the auction now looked at her with respect. Hannah stood with her hand on her stomach, her husband at her side, and a future she never believed she deserved rising before her like the sun. Later, as they walked home beneath the stars, Hannah turned to Logan with a soft smile. "I'm thinking," she said, "that I'm glad that broken rancher told me I was perfect for him." Logan laughed, full of joy. "Best choice I ever made." Their story was no longer about survival. It was about belonging. It was about love that saw what others missed. Sarah walked ahead of them, humming softly, and Hannah realized something profound. She had spent 60 years being told she was too much or not enough. But Logan had seen her exactly as she was, and that had made all the difference. 3 months later, on a cold February morning, Hannah gave birth to a son. Logan held the tiny, crying infant in his arms, tears streaming down his face. "He's perfect," Logan whispered, "just like his mother." Hannah watched from the bed, exhausted but radiant. "What should we name him?" Logan looked at her with such love it took her breath away. "Samuel, after my father." "Samuel Harrison," Hannah said softly, testing the name. "It's perfect." Sarah stood in the doorway, tears in her eyes. "Can I hold him?" "Of course," Hannah said. "You're his sister now." Sarah cradled baby Samuel with tenderness, and Hannah realized that this was her family, not the one that abandoned her, not the one that sold her, but the one she chose, the one she built with love and courage and stubborn hope. Logan sat beside her on the bed, his hand finding hers. "I never thought I'd have this again," he said quietly. A family. A home. A future. Neither did I, Hannah whispered. But here we are. Outside, the ranch stretched across the valley, strong and thriving. Inside, a family gathered around new life, bound not by blood alone, but by choice. Hannah Williams had been told she was too old for love, too old for purpose, too old to matter. But Logan Harrison had seen the truth. She was never too old. She was exactly right. If you've ever been made to feel invisible, if you've ever been told your best days are behind you, this story is your reminder that love, purpose, and new beginnings have no expiration date. Don't let this truth fade. Share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe so you never miss a story that reminds you you still matter. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Your story matters too.